Update: am I the butthole for checking my blood sugar at my desk when my coworker has a severe blood phobia? I'm really glad I posted. It gave me the reassurance I needed that I was doing the right thing going to HR. I took your guys' advice on how to approach the conversation with HR. I said that me and my coworker have conflicting medical needs and I could use advice on a solution that would work for both of us. The HR lady said that I have every right to continue to test my blood sugar in my office. When I told her that James suggested I test only at specific times of the day, her eyes got really big, and she was like, "No. Do not test your blood sugar on a schedule suggested to you by your coworker. Only your doctor." Later, HR spoke to James as well. Here's what we agreed to with HR: James is to call me on the phone before coming to my office. As in, "Hey, can I come ask a question?" And I say sure and ensure I'm not checking my blood sugar at that moment. I cannot test my blood sugar in front of James. I wasn't doing this anyway. If James' phobia symptoms are triggered for whatever reason, he is entitled to a 10-minute break to let his symptoms subside, in addition to the normal breaks we all get. This system worked great, for a week. One day he called as usual. I said sure, come over, but then he didn't come over. After about 10 minutes I actually needed to check my blood sugar but thought with my luck he'd walk in at the exact moment I was testing. I ended up calling him back, and he said that he got distracted and forgot he had a question for me. A few days later it happened again, and I was a bit annoyed that twice I delayed testing because I thought he was going to be entering my office at any second. Soon after I found out that James had put in his 2-week notice. He explained that me being diabetic wasn't the only reason why he was quitting, he wanted different hours etc., but that it did play a role. Later, Megan, our other coworker, told me that James told her that he really struggled with me being diabetic. For example, even just thinking, I need to ask a question, but I have to call first to make sure he's not checking his blood sugar was distressing to him because then he'd be thinking about it, which would make him feel queasy and anxious. James has quit now. While I'm relieved that I don't have to feel like a leper at work anymore, I mostly just feel bad for James. It must be awful living with a phobia that severe, and I know he didn't choose to be that way. I hope he continues to see his therapist and can improve. So I guess this doesn't have a happy ending because ultimately we couldn't work it out, and he quit. Web link. Well, I'm glad that HR were so understanding of both sides and actually attempted to solve it for both of you. I'm sad to hear that he quit because of this, but maybe it's for the better. I hope he can get the help he needs to overcome this phobia, especially since it seems so severe that he couldn't work in the same place as someone who is diabetic. I don't know how he can work around women at all either. Like, does he not know that 1 in 5-ish of them is bleeding at a given time? Good for your HR for supporting your testing schedule and for trying to find a way to make everyone comfortable. I do feel bad for James and hope he finds a way to manage his phobia. Original poster replies. The HR lady was so nice and actually listened to everything I had to say. It was a great experience, honestly. Honestly, why wasn't he just emailing the questions over? That's the part of this update that confuses me the most. Or just asking the questions on the call that he's already making? Original poster replies. I'm a very visual person, so sometimes when my coworker calls me and is like, "Okay, so under the second heading it says this number and next to that it says," and I'm just like, I don't know, come show it to me. So yeah, that's why we don't ask our questions over the phone, as there are generally visuals involved. Yeah, but there's Zoom and MS Teams. Unfortunately, nothing was going to be a reasonable solution for Original Poster's coworker. Once the dude saw Original Poster testing, it probably became a point of fixation and was no longer about the off chance that he would see blood. He saw it once. Original Poster is forever connected with the phobia. James is going to need to work hard on his phobia, as diabetes is very common and a lot more people than he probably realized check their blood sugar throughout the day. A phobia is definitely difficult to face, but turning a blind eye to it won't help you conquer one. I'm thalassophobic, deep, dark water, but I still swim in natural bodies of water, play video games like Subnautica, and sub to r/thalassophobia/a. It still gives me a strong feeling in my gut, but constantly exposing myself to it has made it far more manageable than James' hemophobia. I also hope he somehow gets it under control. That sounds debilitating. Reddit link. Yeah, if your company isn't using some kind of screen sharing software, they need to be. Going forward, after the pandemic, I plan to use it pretty liberally. That's how my coworkers have been teaching me new systems. Screen share is a godsend. Original poster replies. Me and my coworker, only one coworker now that James has quit, frequently have to collaborate on work and are often in each other's offices. It's easier to walk down the hallway and show them what you're working on than to send an email/talk on the phone. It was the same when James was here. It's too bad that he didn't just switch to using Teams or whatever. It would have removed the issue entirely. Even when I was actually working in the office, two of my coworkers who worked 2 rows apart used to frequently call each other, laughing out loud. With how severe his phobia is, I'm not sure that would work. If he panics while thinking about it on the phone, I have a feeling he would think that original poster was doing it just off camera. His thoughts are betraying him and preventing him from functioning as a normal adult. He needs therapy and possible medication. This is the first time I've heard anyone say anything positive about HR in this sub. Last thing HR wants is a comatose diabetic on their hands. That's a cut and dried lawsuit not in their favor. With the entitled way he was acting, I don't feel bad for James at all. Half of what he was saying/acting didn't even add up. F that guy. Wow. His phobia goes way beyond the normal abnormality. It must really be severe. If he can't work in an office where he knows that someone is diabetic, he's going to find it hard to maintain employment. I have a friend with this phobia. She will literally faint if someone even describes blood to her. Sometimes she has seizures. Even with therapy, it's heartbreaking to see someone struggle to live their daily life. After watching her be bullied for it at school, people would literally prick themselves on purpose or use the fake blood in the drama room. I don't know how she manages today. Edit, please stop asking me about how she deals with her period. Yes, obviously it's a challenge for people who have periods. All I know is there is birth control that exists that will stop your period entirely. I had a friend in school with the phobia, though more mild than your friend. It rarely came up, though when it did, she was occasionally asked how she deals with her period. She never would answer, understandably. It's an incredibly invasive question, but it always made me curious. My husband has a blood phobia as well, but he doesn't menstruate. His is incredibly mild though. It just makes him weak/nauseous/faint depending on AMT of blood. Fortunately, his dad instinct overrides it when our daughter is hurt. I used to have this phobia quite badly, although I've improved hugely now to the point that, for example, I would have zero problem with someone checking their blood sugar, even if I watched them the whole time. That's creepy, though. Content note, discussion of menstruation. During the time that I had the phobia, I also had periods, and the boring answer for me is that somehow my brain and body knew that it was a different sort of blood. Even if I saw a lot of my own menstrual blood, I would only have a very mild response, whereas just hearing about someone else's mild injury would trigger a stronger one. I'm sure this isn't the same for everyone who has this phobia and also menstruates, but it's how it worked for me. I wasn't totally free of reactions to menstrual blood, but I know it could have been much worse. Me as well. Mostly, I'm okay. I'm a camp counselor now, so you just kind of override that when protective instincts kick in. The cartoon first aid cert videos still made me queasy though. When I was younger, there were a few times I passed out when I used the restroom. See, I'm not super familiar with phobias, but I kind of feel the same way. He really must struggle all the time if the very idea that people have blood inside them is this disruptive to his life. I think he needs a new therapist, honestly. Therapy isn't a magic bullet. I don't mean to come at you in particular, but I see a lot of this attitude on this sub that assumes therapy will quickly fix any abnormal or antisocial behavior a person has. For example, on a post where the original poster is judged as an butthole due to a behavior related to their anxiety, a commenter will tell original poster to get therapy, original poster will say they're in therapy, and someone will respond, you might need to find a different therapist then. I think this is extremely callous and frankly ignorant. Of course, it's okay to consider looking for a new therapist if your mental state is consistently not improving. But even the best therapists can't change habits and deep-seated mental patterns, they only provide the tools for their clients to do that themselves. And sometimes it takes long as hell. Sometimes it takes years. This is perfectly normal. We don't know anything about James's mental health or progress, so maybe we just shouldn't comment on the quality of his therapist. With Zoom and all, I wonder how much of this could have been handled by James in a phone call or even a Zoom call. The only reasons I can think of for two office coworkers to need a face-to-face interaction is when working materials are involved. Is James a metal worker and needs to show his new material design in tactile form to original poster? What other ways do coworkers need to interact face-to-face these days in office settings? Working through complex solutions to things like engineering is massively more difficult when you can't speak in person and use a whiteboard for more visual people. A lot is lost over the phone. Wow. I can relate to this so hard. I have a severe needle phobia that sounds just like James. I once had a T1D coworker whose cubicle was right next to mine. At first, even just the beeping sound of her glucose test through the cubicle wall was enough to trigger my anxiety. She also had to give herself insulin injections at restaurants when we would go out for lunch as a group. I was very open with her about my anxiety, and often make fun of myself for it to keep the mood light. While my phobia is severe, her illness is life-threatening. I'm extremely understanding that she has to test her blood sugar and take insulin in order to stay alive. Once she knew about my phobia, she would give me a subtle heads up before she tested her sugars or did an injection, and for a while, I would excuse myself to the restroom every time. It worked great for us, and actually helped me to confront my anxiety. Eventually I was able to stay seated next to her at lunch and just turn my head until she was finished testing/injecting. Kindness and understanding on both parts was essential. Neither of us ever wanted the other to feel embarrassed or uncomfortable. I was always the one who removed myself from the situation if it was too triggering. There was never any reason to make her jeopardize her health to accommodate me. We have both since left that job but remain good friends. I was so curious how this turned out. Thanks for the update. You seem like a very kind person. I feel sorry for James. Unless he's able to conquer this particular phobia, he's going to have a very hard time remaining employed anywhere. I don't know. I don't think I have ever seen blood at any job I was at. I have never worked with a coworker who I knew was diabetic or did testing near me. This trigger of his knowing and having to think about someone pricking their finger at work doesn't seem that common to me. Maybe I have had atypical employment, but I find it unlikely that most jobs don't require that. Seems more like James just had got really unlucky in this job and turns out the job was just a bad fit. While I'm sure it feels awful, take this stranger's assurance that James's phobia is not your responsibility in this case. You did your best to accommodate him as HR saw fit. He chose to leave. We can all hope he has a better experience wherever he lands next. I also hope he gets therapy, as he has an issue that is seriously impacting his ability to live a normal life. Personally, it would have been good manners to check you weren't busy before barging over and complaining because you have to check your sugar. What if you were busy with something you might not have time to talk with him about whatever he needs to know? He was being a little selfish, and I am sorry that it's so hard on him, but telling others how to live their lives is wrong. There are enough busybodies doing that without another one. I'm not one to downplay a phobia, but honestly, it seems like James was either expecting them to go further to accommodate him or is looking for a payout. I think this because if he needs to call you in order to make sure the coast is clear, then he should be in the process of actually going to see you. And what exactly does he need to ask, that he couldn't have asked over the phone? Original poster replies. I'm not sure what James was expecting. The first week after the HR discussion went well and I thought James seemed perfectly content. Original poster replies. Always friendly and in a good mood. I think he was genuinely trying to get a handle on it. Megan told me that he was actually struggling more than he let on. So I guess he was trying to hide it to some extent, perhaps out of embarrassment or not wanting to make me feel bad. Original poster replies. Over the phone doesn't work as well because we're often comparing spreadsheets and looking at charts and stuff, so it's easier to be able to see what the other person is working on. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.